Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Filmatic Podcast. This is our first ever video podcast as well. I'm so excited. It's been a while. I'm here, of course, with Connor Park. What's up? What's going on, Connor? We can finally see you now.
I have a face. I have a body. I'm not a floating voice anymore. This is awesome.
Okay, yeah, and also I just want to reiterate. We're all a little kind of clunky. It's been a while since we recorded a podcast together, and seeing everyone's face, it's like when you're in class and you look at your friends and you try not to laugh. It's kind of like that. So.
Well, I'm also looking at Connor, and he's like turning into like a fucking 4-bit picture of himself, and then turning back into a normal version of himself. Yeah,
that's true. Connor, right now, for our audio listeners, looks like he's made of about 4 pixels. So there's just white, just white. All right. Anyway, this is our Eternals podcast, but not just Eternals. We're going to talk about the state of the Marvel cinematic and television properties, as well as the upcoming future. Talk about how it's going, talk about what we thought of it, and so anything, any thoughts, guys, or you guys just want to jump into it?
Let's jump right into it.
Get right into it. All right, so let's talk about Eternals, guys. Eternals came out about a month ago at this point. At the time of recording, we all had a chance to see it. It possibly is one of Marvel's most ambitious films in a while, in the sense that there's no established characters. You get a few references, but this is pretty much a new cast, new characters, and there are a lot of them. There are, I believe, 8 main Eternals. Correct me if I'm wrong, but... And, of course, we come in with the new director, also someone kind of straying from Marvel's usual toolbox of filmmakers, Chloe Zhao, who, of course, was an Oscar winner for her film Nomadland a year ago. And so you got a lot of interesting components, a lot of interesting ingredients in the recipe of this movie. And it led to a very interesting result, as I'm sure we will get into and discuss. So, Connor, would you like to explain?
Eternals.
Yeah,
there are 10.
There are 10. Okay,
yeah,
there are 10 Eternals. All right, cool. So, Connor, if you will, I don't mean to call you out, but I think it'd be really good. I like you have a very descriptive storytelling perspective. I feel like you're good at that kind of thing because you're a musician, and that kind of goes into your art.
This is true.
I should mention, of course, if you didn't know, Burnout, that you're not a burnout. You're
Connor is a burnout.
Your stage name is Burnout. Anyway, little tangent. But I would like you, Connor, if you're willing, to explain to us the gist of this story. And of course, there will be spoilers ahead. I imagine we won't delve right into them, but just be warned, they could pop up at any moment. So here we go, Connor. What's Eternals about?
All right. So to give as minimal of a spoiling overview as possible. Basically, the movie is about the characters, the Eternals, who are all these otherworldly, powerful beings sent to Earth to protect the people of Earth, just, humans, us, from these monsters called deviants, which are just this, creature that eats sentient, intelligent life, and that is not good. As a sentient, intelligent life being, I do not want to be eaten. So, the Eternals are there to protect us. We've got Ajax, Cersei, Icarus, Kingo, Sprite, Festos, Makari, Droog, Gilgamesh, and Thena. If I messed up any of the pronunciations... Yeah, that is off the top of my head and not being read off of my second monitor where I have the Wikipedia page filled up.
Well, okay. All right. Was that all from Wikipedia, or
no? Just the character names. Just the character names, because I couldn't remember all of them.
Sure. It was funny. All right.
So yeah, they're sent down to protect us. They've been here since basically it seems like the dawn of time. Each of them has their own individual set of powers, individual, characteristics about them, and they are all protecting us. Do you want me to go farther into it? But that's that's kind of the overview.
I mean, no, that's a very good gist that you came up with on the spot there.
I think we should add that they were sent by the Celestials.
True.
Yeah,
Which is kind of a key part of the plot.
Yeah, and regarding Celestials, you've gotten hints at the Celestials throughout the MCU. I think dating back to Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, of course, we got a little hint of them. We got a little backstory from them from the Collector, if anyone remembers that. There was a little, what's the word? I don't know. It was some sort of graphic / hologram that was thrown up, and you see the Celestials, and they're kind of glossed over as the creators of the Infinity Stones, which, of course, played in very crucial part in the MCU these last few big movies.
Also, Nowhere, right? Nowhere is the head
right.
of a Celestial.
Nowhere is the severed head of a long dead Celestial, of course. So we did get to see that, and it's kind of cool. I mean, that was 2014, and here we are 7 years later, finally getting an actual, pretty general backstory for the Celestials. So that's cool. But yeah, so the Celestials play a very vital role in this movie as the creators of all of life and all universes everywhere. And like Connor said, they first sent. Okay, well, I guess it depends how spoilery we're going to get off the.
I say we just take the lid off of the spoilers.
All right.
We kind of have to. I feel like to go deeper into it.
I agree. Mm-hmm. All right, so the Celestials, they sent the quote-unquote monsters, deviants, as Connor said, to cull human life or living, or just any, I believe it's any living species and whatnot, and to make sure their population was protected, and to protect them so their population would grow.
That's the Eternals.
And that when their population... Well, they sent the Deviants first.
Well, the Deviants weren't sent to protect. The Deviants were originally sent to take out unintelligent life. The Deviants were sent to kill unintelligent life. And then...
true predators. But still.
Yeah, and then...
So, okay.
Here's something we have to clarify. Intelligent life is not defined as animals in this movie.
Yeah, I should...
Dogs, not intelligent.
They're not intelligent.
There's literally a scene where a deviant... Okay. Approaches a dog and doesn't eat it. I also want to mention, in that scene, Deviant also approaches a homeless man and chooses not to eat it.
Interesting choice by the writers.
Yeah, it's like the first introduction to the modern world.
So the Deviants... I know this all sounds confusing, guys, but bear with us. So, the Deviants were sent to protect quote-unquote intelligent species from predators, I believe is the word used. And but eventually there was a flaw in the way they were made, so they turned against humans. Basically, you could sum it down to that. And so
they started evolving. That was a specific thing they said, right? Is like the Deviants' flaw was that they were able to adapt to the place around them, which I think is interesting.
Right.
I just want to point that out.
Because it's implied that they don't care about the humans, right? Whereas the Eternals, who we'll talk about, very much do, and that is interwoven in their drama that they have with each other and with the morality of saving or not saving Earth. So those are the Deviants, and then the Eternals, like I just said, were sent after them and are clones. I think that's the word, clones of each other, that are sent to a planet every so often that a Celestial is being born. Now, that has to happen because a Celestial, in order to be born, it has to be born from within a planet, and there has to be enough of a population / quote-unquote intelligent life to allow that birth to happen. Therefore, that is why the Eternals must protect the humans so that they can continue to grow. All right. So that's the origin of the Eternals on this in the MCU's world. So I think it's a pretty good backdrop, and of course we will get into the characters and whatnot. I guess my first question for you guys, just so we can spice up the way this is going and not just be explaining the whole movie, is what. Let's just start with what was your favorite part of the movie. How about that? I mean, I feel like we'll kind of naturally splinter from there and cover everything. So, like, if you have a favorite part of the movie or a part that you enjoyed very much regarding these characters in this world, what would you say that is? And anybody can take that when you're ready.
I think my favorite part of the movie, which probably isn't the best answer in terms of people understanding why, is when Festus like binds Icarus to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And he delivers the line, "I've been waiting to clip your wings for a while, Icarus." That line was awesome. The moment
was pretty
awesome.
badass. Yeah.
And I guess for context, Icarus is, I'd say, maybe not definitively the strongest, but he's like presented as being the strongest Eternal in this group, and at least that's the way they view it, so to speak. Like, you can kind of tell that everyone respects him. You know, he can fly, which none of the others can do. So, like, having this other character come in who seemingly is more of like a smart engineer type role for the team, having him come in and just knock this guy down a peg is super satisfying.
Right, especially given the context of the movie and how, like you said, he's being framed and regarded as the most powerful Eternal, basically, by all of them. And also his deception, of course, in the third act, when we find out that this whole time he was never really... he knew the whole... I guess, okay, so we should clarify. The Eternals, besides him and the former leader, whose name I'm blanking on...
Ajax.
Thank you. Ajax obviously know about the true nature of their mission. But the other Eternals don't know that they've been cloned and have lived past lives on other planets, but also don't know what their final directive is, because their minds are wiped at the end of every mission. So it's only... Yeah.
So yeah, like all these Eternals are coming in, and like other than obviously in this case Ajax and Icarus, they're all going in and they're being presented with the idea of like you need to go in and like protect all these humans and like not interfere in their like doings, but you have to just make sure that they stay alive and like continue growing. So their purpose is like, okay, cool, we're here to protect and like save all of these people, but not knowing that their actual purpose is to just increase the amount of intelligent life so that the Celestial can be born.
And you mentioned something that I think a lot of people are asking, those who were going into the movie and some who haven't even seen the movie who are also asking. I've heard people talk about this, is like, oh, well, if there are 10 superpower god Eternals, why didn't they intervene during all these other conflicts, namely, Infinity War, Thanos, the whole universe being wiped? And like you said, they were instructed by the Celestials to not interfere with anything other than to protect the humans from Deviants specifically, right? So I think we should just clarify that, that's why we haven't seen them before.
And also, I think it's important that, like, if you've seen the movie or heard about the movie, people might use that as a criticism, right? Because in the trailer, that line is delivered, that they were instructed not to involve in any conflicts that didn't involve deviants. But they do interfere with humans, so they kind of like break their own rules.
But yeah,
it's normally to a very limited capacity and for different reasons. And there's kind of you see flashbacks throughout the movie that I think kind of presented as like the Eternals themselves, as they spend more and more time on Earth, change their position on how much they should interact with the humans based on how much they care about them and what they've witnessed throughout history, right? So I bring that up to say, they don't want to directly stop human conflict or interfere in a war, whether that's World War II or Infinity War in this case, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's like something interesting is they could have easily influenced the events of those movies. I think that's kind of implied or left up in the air as a possibility. which is kind of interesting. I don't want to get too much into theories right now, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, that comes later.
Factor.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, and I do think like having obviously now seen the full movie and you finish it, and you learn of the true intentions of their celestial, whose name is M.
Arafem.
Can someone tell me is it Arafem? Okay.
Arasham. Sorry, Arasham.
Oh, Arasham.
Who's the first celestial?
Right, that's true. Arasham,
Which I think is interesting. He basically, from the way they presented in the movie, what we know about the Marvel Universe version of this, he basically created the universe, which then created more Celestials. So
Right.
this guy basically is God,
more or less,
creator sense, and in the sense that he's basically ruling over how everything is done.
Right, the literal laws of nature in this universe, or in all universes, technically, right, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I feel like the fact that the Eternals sometimes did dip into the side of interfering, for example, with, like you said, Phastos, such a great character, you see him, it's implied that he was involved with the creation of the nuclear bomb, right, because one of his jobs as an Eternal is to help humankind's technology progress so that they can protect themselves against threats. And I think that the reason that those kind of things still happen, it goes to show that, like, it kind of goes to show the invalidity of their mission, you know what I mean? And, like, how things aren't as cut and dry as they seem as we learn, you know what I mean? That they can violate those things and nothing happens. Kind of like a statement on how the Celestial is operating, and that it doesn't really matter if they interfere. Because at the end of the day, or the end of however long this era is, the Celestial plans to kill everyone on the planet anyway, right? So it's interesting seeing, like, the way that the rules are being bent by them, which first seem like plot holes or something like that, but are then kind of justified in the sense of, like, oh shit, this is a totally different set of scales, So
yeah, and I also think a lot of the plot holes get filled in by the fact that you understand that, like, the exposition that we get at the beginning, right, about their mission and everything that they've been told, that's coming straight from Arishem, who doesn't want them to know that their purpose is to enable the destruction of a planet and essentially, like, genocide.
Because, in order to be born, the Celestial just, like, breaks through and destroys the entire planet. Like, I don't know if we can clarify.
Yeah, they're massive. They're massive beings. But it's like, you realize that a lot of the plot holes, because it's like, why are they doing these things? If this is their mission and they're not supposed to interfere, etc. It's because, like, I the way I see it, and I think the way it's supposed to be presented is, like, Arisham's basically manipulating them. They're just, like, tools to him. So you'll hear, like, parts where Ajak, is like, we're not supposed to interfere, don't do this, we can't give them this kind of technology. But then, the movie presents this as a twist later on when you find out the purpose of their true mission. I think things begin to make sense retroactively because they didn't actually know what was going on. At least the large majority of them did not know what was actually going on. So, I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting because it makes it feel a lot more real because you get these weird gray areas where it's like, Ajak is the leader of the Eternals, right? In this case, she knew the entire time what their mission was, but concealed that information from them, but then had a change of heart to tell them, and it just feels a lot more morally questionable. Even if we want to talk about the aspect that, a planet has to be sacrificed along with everything on it in order to create another galaxy where more life will be found. I think it makes the movie feel a lot different in certain ways than previous Marvel movies.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially like you said, like, this possibly poses, actually, personally, I'd say it definitely poses the biggest philosophical question, the biggest set of moral conflicts that the viewer has to kind of undergo in terms of who they want to relate to, in this universe. Like,
it honestly ends up being kind of like a similar not exactly the same, but kind of like a similar style of debate to like Thanos' whole purpose of like, which I guess could be boiled down to utilitarianism, which is where he said like, destroy half of the life so that the other half can like thrive more. This is just like
Yeah.
take
But
out
this
an
is like
entire
a
planet.
huge scale.
Yeah, this is like take out like an
To-
entire planet of people. The entire planet, like ecosystem, just the entire planet no longer in
Yeah.
existence. In
But
order
not
to
just that,
create-
take out an entire planet in order to create hundreds of thousands
The
of more planets.
universe.
Yeah,
Another universe, basically, yeah. At
It's
least.
like I say the universe because it's like if the Eternals just went around remembering everything and wanted to stop every Celestial from being born, like they could do that until they're stopped by Arishem. But besides that, if they did, it's implied, at least from what they've told by Arishem, that life would just eventually stop existing. It's not like Earth on its own can sustain itself forever, or any planet. So without the creation of new planets, essentially the expansion of the universe.
Right.
Not to get into real physics because
It's a real concept, which is that
But
the
yeah.
universe is constantly expanding, right?
It could just
So-
it could lead to like the barren, just the rest of everything becoming barren. No new life is created.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's interesting in a way because not only is like what the Celestials are doing questionable, that also makes what the Eternals are doing questionable. There's
Right,
like
exactly.
if one is, the other is, because they're working against each other.
Mhm. I don't know. It makes you think like how much is Arishem lying? How much is to what degree is there another way? Basically, is what I mean. To
Yeah,
say.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I wanted to point out that he is the first Celestial. Because I think it's interesting. Like he basically, it's implied at least that he kind of rules at his own decree, and he created the Eternals, he created the Deviants, he's creating other Celestials. It could all just be selfish what he's told them. Maybe
Mhm.
his intervention is not necessary to create more life, and maybe other Celestials don't necessarily agree with him. But if he created the Eternals and controls their memory, essentially controlling their entire perception of reality, that could just be the case for other Celestials, right? I don't know. I think that's something that's
True.
not directly explored in this movie, but I think it leaves a lot of room, and
Yeah.
it presents a background where a lot of interesting things can happen.
Yeah.
Thematically.
And it leaves the viewer wondering and having these conversations amongst each other of like, oh, what could happen next? You know what I mean? Because it really is interesting to think about how the set of laws of this entire universe, can be changed and or redefined. And that's what's so like different about this movie, like you said, is because it's such a different scale. Normally after you watch Captain America: The Winter Soldier, it's like, oh, where's Cap gonna go next? Where is he gonna find Bucky? Blah blah blah. They all seem so like tiny and insignificant to like questioning what's gonna happen to the entire universe. You know what I mean? Or not even more than that. It's a huge scale, and it kind of, I said this at the time too, it kind of harkens and makes me reminiscent of like a more of a darker DC Zack Snyder type movie. These are the kinds of philosophical and moral questions, not the same scale, but the same kind of questions I feel like I had after watching like Batman versus Superman. You know what I mean? Because there's I feel like the similarities between like a Zack Snyder movie and this movie is like both these directors seem to be very big on symbolism and things that are grand. I mean, there are multiple, like you mentioned, one like Icarus comparisons to the legend of Icarus, and all the Eternals have names that relate to other legends, and of course it's kind of explained and implied that they inspired those legends within this universe. But it's almost a little meta because it also draws comparisons to the legends that we know that are real in our universe, if that makes sense. So
yeah, which like
there's a lot of symbolism. Yeah.
oh, yeah, which even goes farther than just Icarus. Like Icarus and like the legend of like the boy who flew too close to the sun. Like
Mhm.
going farther, even like in their names, like Festos, the Eternal, whose
Yeah.
power is like engineering, like kind of similar to the like I don't know if it's the Greek name or the Roman name, but Hephaestus.
It's Greek.
Greek, yeah,
Yeah.
the Greek god is Hephaestus, which is like the god of just like I don't know what he's
Right. And
technically
then
god of, but like
Athena,
just
you
nightmare.
have Athena. Yeah.
The protector
So
of
and so on and
Athens.
so on. Sprite, of course, is a legendary type of mythical creature in in a lot of different folklore. So, all of them relate to something. Oh, there you go. There's Sprite. Looks like a green dot on my screen, but I think that's Sprite.
It is.
Yeah. Use your
Yeah, that was-
imagination a little bit.
Right. So, yeah, and of course, the next relevant topic with this movie, in terms of the story and writing, is the characters. Nice. Can we see that? Can we get a close up of that? Right now, for our audio listeners, Darian
Gemma
is showing
Chan.
us,
Gemma
Yes,
Chan's Cersei.
Happy Meal toy.
Something cool I didn't know about this. Yours also probably does this, Connor. All right. There's a hole in the bottom of the toy that if you put a light through, it makes them glow.
Okay, I saw the
That's
hole on the
cool.
bottom, but I wasn't sure what its purpose was.
Yeah, it shines light up through the center of their chest where it glows in the movie.
Oh, that's so.
Oh, that's
cool.
what the hole for. I was doing it all wrong.
That is really neat. I like that.
Has multiple uses, you know. Just to say what's wrong and what's right, Nabil. That's the theme of this movie.
True.
This podcast.
That is one of the themes of the podcast.
I wanted to bring up though, before I forget, it's interesting that you use like the scale of like Captain America as a comparison, because I think also like just like the scale of the consequences and stuff. I agree with you. Obviously, there's a big difference, but I think also like the scale of like what the viewer is being confronted by is a lot larger, like in a non-physical sense.
Mhm.
Like Captain America, I think is a good example because you never really like question what he's doing. Like you could argue there's
Mhm.
questions to be asked in Civil War, but I disagree with that. I don't want to go into that. I think most of the time, Cap's pretty clear cut, dry, doing the right thing, good guy. You know, like from the get go, he like jumps on a fucking.
Which is his
grenade.
character, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's bad, but it's like
Yeah.
comparing something like that in the MCU to something like this, it feels a lot
More complex.
interesting. And complex is a good word. But, you know, and not even, you know, Cap's character is like predicated on this like sense of doing the right thing. So maybe that's a bad example. But even someone like name any MCU character. Is there really an example you can think of where you're questioning what they're doing constantly? A lot of the times they kind of just do the right thing, and the person that they're fighting is not really redeemable. I guess, you know, there's that whole thing where like, oh, well, Thanos was like maybe doing the right thing, which connects to this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But it's presented in a way that they're not. I feel like this movie genuinely presents it in a sense of unknown. Like, for example, Kingo, which is another part of this movie that I really liked. They're preparing to stop the Celestial's birth, right? And Icarus doesn't want this to happen. And Kingo is pissed at Icarus because he killed Ajax to try to help the birth of the Celestial. But Kingo's also like, I'm not going to help Icarus, but I'm not going to help you guys because I don't know if I think
he says I have faith in Irisham or something like that.
Yeah, he says it goes against his beliefs, you know, and before that he's talking about like we could stop the birth of billions if we do this. And he just walks out. He doesn't come back during the fight. There's no moment after that you see him until the very end of the movie. He just leaves because he's like, I don't know if this is the right thing. I think that's like a pretty good example of this movie being different. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like it's like one, the scale of the actual conflict itself, and like two, like even in the bigger ensemble movies, like, you know, like any of the Avengers movies, Infinity War, Endgame, like all those movies, yes, they do have a bunch of individual characters with like their own kind of variety of a take on the situation. But at the end of the day, they're still about, you know, the specific characters. Whereas this movie, while it does have the specific characters in each of the Eternals, I feel like just as a whole, it's more so about like the plot and like the drama and like the problems and like how the problem is being dealt with on all sides more so than like how an individual is processing the problem.
They're also like, it's insane to keep in mind. Like a core part of this movie is like all of them being confronted with the fact that their reality is just not real because they don't even have their memories, right? They've existed for millions of years and they just don't even know it until it's revealed to them this time again. And like, they don't even know what's true. You know what I mean? You've been told one thing your whole life and then you're told that you don't have memory of what you were told and experienced before that. It's like such a dynamic thing to explore, I think, for a Marvel movie. It feels a lot like, it's not like everyone's just like sitting around, breezing through the plot, coming up with a plan, pulling something off crazy to set up their plan, and then doing it. It's like they're really conflicted for most of the movie and not sure if they even want to come up with a plan.
It reminds me of kind of the old pre-MCU Marvel movies, right? Those first few X-Men movies, Blade, Ghost Rider, you could argue to some degree, in the sense that, like, because they're not so focused on not being a standalone movie and having to relate to a whole universe of other characters and having bigger moral issues to wrestle with, they have a totally different sense of scale and a totally different sense of weight to them, but it's still, of course, in Eternals, you still get a kind of like a good mix of some MCU kind of inventions. I mean, some could argue a little bit of the humor. There are ties to future Marvel projects. They're not necessarily shoved down your throat, but there are things that tie into the universe. So it kind of feels like a little bit of both, maybe the best of both worlds, arguably. And I had said this to our good friend Evan, who's been on the podcast before, but Eternals isn't a perfect movie by any measure, but I think it is a great movie, and it is more than 100% a step in the right direction. And I hope that more big Marvel movies and superhero movies can be more like that, and go back to their roots and try to learn from that sort of thing.
And another piece on the like ambition of the movie is like Marvel like obviously doesn't have like just all like white male superheroes, but like that is a large majority of the the people you'll see, like the Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man. Like you're just seeing these white males, and in this cast, it is very much all over the place as far as like gender, as far as ethnicity, and one of the main characters too like doesn't speak in the movie. I'm not sure if it's like shown that they're like deaf or just like mute in some way, but they communicate with sign language throughout the entire movie, which is not something that's been seen in a superhero film before. So like, I think this is kind of increasing the range of the superhero genre to include relatability to a lot more people, which I think is another really
this is
really awesome.
This is also the first movie in the MCU. Okay, listen. Technically speaking, it's not. But it's like really the first movie with an actually open gay character also. The only one before that was in Endgame. It was like a cameo by one of the Russo brothers, which I don't know. I feel like that was a lot more subtle, and it's not the same as actually having a main character be gay. Having like a one-off scene where someone mentions having a husband isn't the same as the way they presented Festus.
This feels more like kind of like, imagine if Iron Man was gay, and in the whole series of Marvel movies, instead of seeing Pepper Potts, you saw a guy. You know what I mean? This feels more like it could be kind of that sort of thing.
Okay, and it
it's actually like genuine, I think. Not to say the other instance wasn't, but
it doesn't at all like at any point feel like it's like, oh, they just threw this in to be inclusive or like forced. Like it had just like the kind of natural flow to like as far as the scene where Hephaestus is like, or where the Icarus and Circe are introduced to Hephaestus's husband and child. Like it felt like it had the natural flow of if the same exact scene was done from a heterosexual couple's position, like
Well,
in any other.
and even regarding like the way they look and the diversity of that, like it also ties into their quote unquote design, by Erisham, in the sense that like he kind of explains and implies that he had to innovate with them to make them different from the deviants. You know what I mean? And it just goes to show, I think, that there's actual purpose to it. You know what I mean? Like you said, it doesn't feel forced. Like, for example, if you remember, there's a part where Sprite, she's kind of shown throughout the movie to be frustrated with being tiny, looking much younger than the rest of them, having to eternally look like that, That's kind of shown a little bit.
And functionally in the world, living with humans, she is a child to humans.
She'll be a child forever to them, yeah. And she has to deal with that. And she says, I believe the quote is something like, "Why did he make me like this?" And she's like crying. And so, yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is that I think that their diversity actually helps the storytelling in that way. Because if they were all, like you said, like one archetype, or the usual, so to speak, it wouldn't have been as interesting.
Yeah, and like this, like it farthers into their powers too, like as far as developing the diversity, because they each, like, while the like visual
Right.
effects,
Some of them have gay powers, I think. Right?
No, like as far as like visually and just like
kidding.
effectively, like how the powers work and what they do and like their purpose, whether that be like an assistive purpose, like defensive, offensive, like they all have very different powers that build into their characters a lot. Like Druid,
which I want to talk about is, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Druid is one of the Eternals, and his power is like mainly mind control, as far as just like being able to take over. And he like struggles with that a lot throughout the movie because they're, as we talked about earlier, they're told not to get involved in human conflict. But he is somebody who can like, with like just by thinking about it, could
stop all human conflict.
Yeah, like he could stop wars. And there's a big scene where they're at, I don't remember the name of the place that they were at or the specific conflict that they were in.
I think it's Techno. I don't know how to pronounce it. Are you talking about the one with the Spaniards?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Tech. I don't know how to pronounce it. Techno. I don't want to mispronounce it. I could look up.
I'll see if I'll look for it, but keep going, Connor.
Yeah, but so basically, like all the Eternals are like they have gotten rid of the deviants in this area, and they're all sitting on top of this kind of like pyramid. Not a pyramid, but it's like a temple type esque thing, and they're all up there like, okay, we are done here. We cannot get involved. And outside, you were just seeing like genocide happening. Like this group comes in with increased like infantry weapons, and they are taking out a native population that is incapable of defending themselves. And he's standing there like, I can literally, with a single thought, stop this entire conflict and save everybody involved. And all the like the Eternals in charge, like Ajax in charge, is telling him like, you cannot get involved, like you cannot do this. And he's just like, it is destroying him because he is sent there to save them and to like help people, and he can't do it even though he has the ability to. So in that scene, he ends up like similar to what Kingo does later on. He just walks away from the Eternals. He says, I cannot do this anymore. Like I cannot like morally bring myself to continue acting the same way. So in that scene, he just leaves the rest of the Eternals, stops the entire conflict, and leaves.
Right. That was a really powerful scene too, and they did a good job, I think, of explaining why the Eternals split off from each other. It doesn't feel ingenuine. It doesn't feel like we like we were talking to someone about it, and it's like, well, it's just a classic like get the band back together thing like we've seen 100 times in all these other movies. But it's not like that because they all have moral principle reasons as to why they decided to cut themselves off, or those who have. And backtracking a little bit to the diversity thing, I just want to mention before I forget, like, props to, I can't believe I'm saying this, but props to Disney and props to Marvel because of their inclusion of specifically the gay couple, the movie did not get released in China and I believe Saudi Arabia.
And China's like a really, really big market for Marvel movies too.
Yeah,
so that's like
that is the
big financial
than
impact.
America. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously they don't need it, but I mean, it's still, it's still money that they're choosing not to take in order for principles, or I mean, I guess you could argue it's blah blah blah. But whatever the case is, on its surface level, there's some respect in whoever made that decision. I feel like so. Props to them for that, and props to them for also backing up their director, not just through the story and doing a standalone movie, but for that too. So I just wanted to say that, and also, like you said, regarding their powers and them having different ones, I think it's worth mentioning that and we've talked about this a little bit, is like in the original comics, they all had the same powers. They all just had energy, celestial powers generically. Now, there were things where some of them were better at certain powers, so they used those more. But what I like in this movie, like you were talking about, is like they all have specific powers that relate to their identity and their principles too. So the movie would have been a lot less complex with their characters. I feel like if they all just shot energy balls.
Oh yeah.
So
because like even like in the end, the conflict comes to a high point, and they end up like all fighting each other, and that fight becomes very very interesting and like dynamic to watch, because you see Icarus at the lead of trying to stop the Eternals and let the Celestial be born, and he is one of the strongest offensive Eternals. He has like energy lasers that come out of his eyes, and he is
basically Superman.
Yeah, like he can fly, like he is just incredibly strong. Whereas Cersei's powers are mostly used defensively in the entire thing. Like you see her in one of the opening scenes. There's like an earthquake, and she's a teacher at a school, and there's a big trilobite like fossil on the wall that is about to fall like onto one of the children, and she reaches up and like puts her hand on it and transforms it into dust so that it doesn't fall and collapse. And like that's her power, is like just transforming matter into. It seems kind of like just like I don't know, just transforming in general, because there's a lot of different ways that she ends up doing it, from like dust to rose petals to birds in one of the scenarios.
And it's really interesting. It actually is interesting to see, and they obviously make a joke out of it in the movie when they're doing the documentary on the plane, and she's like, "Oh, I turn rocks into metal and metal into rocks and that kind of thing," and that was a funny joke, but I think that just goes to show that us describing it sounds simple, but seeing it actually looks really cool and useful in battle and whatnot.
Oh yeah, like
yeah. So
I don't know. Was Ajax's power ever like specifically pointed out?
She heals.
Okay. Yeah,
she heals.
Yeah.
Ajax is able to heal. Cersei transforms. Icarus is kind of like the Superman style, lasers from the eyes, flies, super strong. Kingo is able to like form energy with his hands and use that offensively. Sprite is able to create illusions and like just kind of I guess illusions is the best way to say it. Just like something like visual changes in the environment. Festos, like we talked about earlier, is like engineering. He's able to like create and manipulate materials.
Design.
Makari was the character that was mute and used sign language. She had speed, like she could just super speed, run really fast. Gilgamesh had kind of like a brute force, like using the energy.
But that awesome one punch thing he did.
Oh yeah, his powers were.
That's not a reference. I don't know anything, by the way. I know that people talk about One Punch or some sort of show or something.
One Punch Man. Yeah.
Honestly, people talk about that a lot. To be fair, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not original. I don't know if that's what that's about, but it seems like his classic move is like the one punch thing, and it's so absurdly powerful. It's awesome to watch.
And then Athena is able to materialize like different
weapons.
Styles of weapons and shields in order to just like, and she fights in a
and
more
she's
like
known
traditional.
She's known as the greatest warrior in history too.
Yeah, because like it does
again leads to the.
Yeah, because they do talk about it at some point, like she, for a period of time, protected Athens and like started the like the goddess Athena storyline, or not storyline,
the legend,
the legend of goddess Athena
storyline. Yeah,
yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. So, those are very good descriptions, and also I should say like the powers being different also lends to the fact that the deviants absorb their powers in this movie. We see them, they first absorb Ajax powers, and we watch them heal themselves, which makes them more formidable, and so on through Gilgamesh and whatnot. So I think that was cool to see. I know they're, speaking of quote unquote flaws. I know that there was some discussion, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about the Prime Deviant. What did you guys think of the Prime Deviant? Do you think it could have been done better? Do you think that their Deviants alliances towards the end should have been more sided with the Eternals, or what do you guys think about that, if anything?
I think I don't know. The one scene where the deviant killed Ajak and took in her healing power and kind of like pushed that power out to the other deviants, making them stronger. I like that a lot. The scene where one of the deviants killed Gilgamesh and took in his power, and then through that developed a more humanoid form and like the ability to communicate. There was only like that really like the one-off scene in the middle where he talked, and then the scene kind of like the final fight scene with Athena. That I thought was a little bit confusing, but it also definitely like solidified the deviants' perspective, where they were like, "Yeah, we were sent here to protect, and we have just been trying to live on this planet that we were sent to, and you guys have been like just mass murdering us for centuries." And it like kind of shows the perspective of just what has to this point been a mute lion, tiger, like just kind of rabid animal type.
Because the deviants are basically, quote unquote gods, like gods being the Celestials, like abomination. They're cast aside and are being targeted because they were failed creation. So that's a really interesting dynamic to explore.
Because it's like you can't even at that point really be upset with the deviants and be like, "Oh no, why are the deviants doing this?" Like that is just like they were just created and then tossed aside, and now this is their only like ability and purpose is to do this. So like even while you're not really like, "Oh, I want the deviants to win," you're just like, "Okay, yeah, I just kind of understand what they're doing and like why they do what they do."
And when we like talk about and think about that, I feel like okay, it makes sense that the deviants wouldn't side with the Eternals at the end to stop the Celestial from being born. But I know some people were kind of thrown off by that and felt like the deviants got not misused, but like underused towards the end. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that there was a good ending to their story?
Here's the thing. I feel like I want to say a few things first.
Mm-hmm.
The deviants, like, the Prime Deviant absorbing Gilgamesh and being able to speak and communicate, I think feels weird because you're seeing these, like, previously just, like, animalistic,
generic
CGI characters turn into something more human. But I also think it's kind of important they did that because I think the deviants are going to continue to play a role in the Eternals in this universe. And like in the comics, they were just humanoid characters that could communicate, right?
Oh, so they were like more humanoid. Okay, I didn't know that about them in the comics.
Yeah. I don't know that much about it, but I know they were humanoid. They had human-looking faces and could speak. So I think, obviously, like, it's kind of important to show that they are sentient. Just because they can't speak doesn't mean they aren't, and it is important to show their side of it. And I also think it functions as a way to communicate directly to the viewer more of the, like, moral ambiguity of what the Eternals are doing, right? Because it's like, oh, well, we were sent here to kill the deviants, and they were killing people, so it's fine that we kill them, right? But then, like, is it really? Like, you're just following orders, the classic, I don't want to go down this whole conversation, but it's kind of insane to think about how the Eternals, like, they kind of don't care, like, like, the Prime Deviant's attacking them and isn't really open to, like, fucking, making amends, obviously, but also, like, what else are they going to do? You know what I mean? Like,
at that
they were sent to kill them, and they just kind of... I think they're going to reflect on it more in the future, is my point, you know what I mean? It does feel like that part of the movie was a little bit rushed, but I think there's, like, reasons that it kind of comes off as weird, and I also think it's, like, Icarus says, like, when he feeds Ajak to the deviants, oh, this will just, buy me time until the emergence happens, because everyone will have to deal with this. I think that's kind of like reflective of the role they play in the movie. It feels like more of a distraction for them to deal with. Uh, but I did like the last scene with the deviant, just separately from all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I like the last scene with Thena. Thought it was like really creepy and weird the way he was like binding her wrists and like whispering in her ear in the voice of Gilgamesh and talking about how he had all of their memories.
Yeah, that's kind of it's messed up, but like in a very interesting way.
Yeah, I thought it was a fine ending. I mean, because the thing is, just because this Prime Deviant gets killed by Thena and it feels kind of like rushed, it sets the stage because if any other Deviant had absorbed those powers, right, and become able to communicate, it would have still expressed the same things. Because I think the main fact of the matter is that I could be wrong here, but he talks about how he has all of their memories, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that it's like he becomes aware of the massacre that the Eternals have caused because he has their memories, not because prior to absorbing them, he was aware enough to understand the scale of what was happening. You know what I mean? As like an animal running around killing humans, I don't think there's a degree of awareness. I don't know. I think it is basically like the deviants in their normal form aren't completely like sentient and intelligent, but by absorbing the Eternals, they're able to evolve, which was their main flaw originally, right? And become closer to the Eternals. And like you said, they're kind of like just a screwed up version of them that shouldn't have been created in the eyes of their creator.
Right.
An interesting piece of information that Darian told me after we watched is that Thanos is like canonically
Celestial.
half eternal. Oh, is he a celestial?
Or excuse me.
He's half
Yeah, you're
eternal.
right. He's an eternal.
Yeah, Thanos is half eternal, half deviant, right? That's what Darian had said to me. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
It's not confirmed in the MCU, but in the comics,
not in the MCU. Yeah,
he's like a cast off. I mean, he also like I don't know. It's weird because I think the reason Thanos actually looks different is because he has some like rare disorder that makes him look purple, which is why he's cast off. You could probably do a quick search. I don't know. You might be currently, but
yeah. Let's see. In the comics, Thanos is an Eternal from a very important bloodline. His father was son of Kronos, who ruled Eternals following a civil war. This took him to Titan, its own group of Eternals, using a genetic device. Okay, this is totally different. But
okay, he is Eternal, but he was born with a deviant syndrome, is what this is saying.
Yeah, I just see that here. An Eternal getting a deviant-like mutation was dubbed deviant syndrome, the way Thanos looks with his purple skin and ridged chin. So we'll see if they adapt that in the movies.
I kind of hope they do. They probably will, I feel like.
They definitely will, because he looks like completely different being compared to Harry Styles, who's his brother, apparently, as we learned in the post-credit scene. Connor, what did you think of the post-credit scene, real quick?
The post-credit scene? We're talking about the mid-credit scene with Harry Styles,
excuse me,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That I thought was very interesting, like just developing like the fact, like the Thanos' brother character, because I think that might give us more background, like in future movies, in like, you know, maybe Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, maybe in Eternals too, but just like kind of giving us more background to the character of Thanos, and maybe helping to explain his upbringing and even give more context to Endgame and to like, or I guess to the Infinity War Endgame, like Thanos' decision making there and the things that happened.
And I'll say two things. Firstly, like, whichever Marvel, and I said this probably to you guys, like, whichever Marvel executive made the decision to cast Harry Styles as a character in the MCU, I guess did their job, because I don't know about you guys, but in my theater, every single female screamed the moment he appeared on the.
You know,
on the
people were really hyped to see that
audibly. When I saw it with Darian and I made up 50% of the viewing audience, so there wasn't much of that. But I personally was pretty excited because, one, Harry Styles is hot. And two, I just think that'll bring in like a lot of people who maybe had been starting to get a little bit bored with the MCU, or people who had never been interested but are Harry Styles fans, or like a younger audience even that hasn't been into it yet. And they're like, oh, this celebrity that we like is in the MCU, which is honestly like just a good marketing move, and also it's just fun to be able to
Marketing-wise,
see.
it's genius.
Oh yeah, and it's also just fun for the audience to be able to see people that celebrities that we know from other things be introduced into this and see like a new character represented by these people. Like I think it's pretty cool.
The only thing that's not marketing genius about it is the character that they chose to represent, because that's going to be pretty interesting, I think. Obviously, they cannot do what was done in the comics, but like,
I think
the character that he's playing is called Star Fox, but he's also called Eros, and his whole thing is like controlling physical/sexual attraction of other people to himself. And I just want to say, I don't know if we talked about this, Nabil, but there's an actual like real comic where he's tried for sexual assault and defended by She-Hulk in court.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is She-Hulk's coming out soon.
Doubt they're going to be going anywhere.
If they touch that, Marvel's done. It's over.
Given the actor they have playing him, and obviously it being Disney, I doubt we get anything like that. I think it's just going to be, he's just going to be a heartthrob, obviously, who's like good with women, and it's like, oh, and also he's going to be like, his role, I feel like, is just going to be explaining the whole Thanos thing. And or just, maybe joining the Eternals as some sort of, I don't know what his powers are, I don't remember, but yeah.
Well,
and the Pits.
That's all his powers. Okay.
So he has
like fighting ability.
I mean, he probably has some kind of fighting ability, but here's what I'm saying, right? If he's just like a charmer and they play into that for a joke, it has some dark implications, Like if there's one female character that's into him and his whole gimmick is charming people, it's kind of sus. You know what I mean? So they might just have to completely change it. Yeah, they might have to. I don't know. I liked the line in the mid-credits scene where he's like talking to Athena, and he's like, "You're even more beautiful than the legends say." So they're already kind of playing into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And where I'm reading right now, it's saying he has the power to physically control other people's emotions, which I guess will probably end up being played in less of a sexual way and more of, I don't know. I don't really know how that's going to play out. I think that'll be something to see, for sure.
I think they're just going to make him like, because Eros in Roman mythology is the god of love or something. I bet they'll just do some shit like that where it's like, that's his, whatever, you know what I mean? They're not going to go anywhere, obviously.
I think like the idea of him just controlling emotions is interesting, but I think they're also going to have to differentiate him from Druid. You know what I mean? That's going to be the weird part. They have to make him not seem like Druid. Unless he's not going to be the main character, which would be kind of sad because I want to see Harry Styles play a significant role. It'd be funny.
Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I guess I could see him becoming an Eternal, like on the team. I'm sure a few of them will die in the next movie. I could see that happening.
Well, I also think it's interesting to think about like what's going on, right? Because all the Eternals have their memories wiped, and Harry Styles shows up, and he's like, I know how to help you guys. I have this device that lets me communicate with Arishem just in my hand. Like, he basically, it seems like he's already broken out of the system that they were in at the beginning of this movie.
Right, so it's going to be more like a guide to that side of the universe, maybe.
Yeah, like maybe there's other Eternals who have already been like, fuck this, I'm not going to work for Arishem, that's bullshit, I'm going to go help people.
There are more celebrity Eternals. There's like I don't know, Adam Sandler Eternal.
Because that is
like random celebrities.
Yeah, something they did with Kingo's character too. I thought the whole thing they did with Kingo's character was so funny. Where he's like, "Yeah, my great grandfather, father, and like I are all in like this lineage of like Bollywood actors," when it's really just all him because he's been alive the whole time. And he like
I thought that was really good.
He just is like an Earth celebrity, and he has like throughout the whole thing a human coming with him, just filming stuff. I don't know, just that level of interaction.
A human, all right.
Yeah.
Is that a something?
Well, I don't know. I'll save it for the theories if we want to get into this at a specific point, because I don't want to derail everything about what we're discussing.
I just want to cover all our bases on the plot or the characters and whatnot in this movie first. Cersei and Icarus. Thoughts on their relationship and chemistry? I will say it was good. It was fine. I do have some thoughts, but I want to wait till your guys' opinions. But what I want to say also is like the chemistry between Druig and Makari. I feel like was really good, and we saw even less of them than Icarus and Cersei. So anyway,
the actor that plays Druig is so fucking good, dude.
Yeah,
I think he's awesome.
Yeah, I like
a good actor.
Something about the Cersei Icarus like romantic aspects that I did enjoy was like they gave enough backstory throughout it, like at like appropriately spaced times, but like to explain that like at a point in the past they were married and in like a long-term romantic thing.
And
but another thing that I liked that they did though was like they kind of teased at like Icarus still wanted to get back together with Cersei and still like had those feelings, but because of like XYZ reasons that had happened throughout time, Cersei just like that was just no longer an option. And Cersei like started the movie with a human boyfriend or with like a non-eternal significant other,
Dane Whitman.
Yeah, and I don't know, just the fact that like they were able to kind of keep that going throughout and didn't just like give up that character, weren't like, oh, Icarus is back, throw Dane out, and like they're getting back together. I like that like they were able to show that like kind of romantic, like history, chemistry conflict here while maintaining like this other separate relationship. I thought that was a good like writing piece as far as that relationship went.
Yeah, and I agree. I've heard some. I listened to a few movie podcasts myself, and I've read the reviews, and I've talked to people. Some people seem to have an opinion that the chemistry between Icarus and Cersei isn't as good as it should be. Now, here's what I think, having discussed this, having this discussion with you guys, and also my own thoughts, is like, I do think the chemistry is stronger between Makari and Druig. However, I think that the reason as to why Icarus and Cersei's chemistry is less so is because, like Connor mentioned, we're 100 years. I think it's 100 years since we're last in a relationship, right? At least a century. So I feel like it makes sense that they would be detached for most of the movie, and then especially after the midpoint of the movie when you find out that Icarus is betraying them, more or less, right? So I feel like when you consider the plot, it makes sense as to why they aren't all.
Oh yeah, and like
and
in like the more flashback scenes where it was showing the development of that relationship, I feel like in those scenes they did have like a lot of visible chemistry, like in like especially in the first especially in the first scene when they get together.
Sex. Right, yeah, go ahead.
The only flashbacks we get are of the beginning of their relationship. Also,
that is true. That is true, but I feel like also that like those are the only things that really is necessary as far as
it seems like we're missing a big chunk, and I wonder if we're gonna see that in future movies as like a flashback almost.
Well, yeah, there's plenty of time to see it. I think it's interesting that they were able to like, I don't know, despite whatever amount of chemistry you saw between the two characters, I think they used it in the way that they intended to well. You know, like at the end, Icarus could have just killed Cersei and prevented them from stopping the Celestial,
but he couldn't bring himself.
Yeah, and it's like everyone else, or largely everyone on the team, saw something in humanity and Earth and life that they wanted to, that made them want to stop the emergence and the death of this planet. Icarus had such an allegiance to Arishem that he did not see that, but what he saw in Cersei allowed him to stop himself. You know, I think it's like, I think that's interesting. You know what I mean? Even though he didn't necessarily see what all of them saw in humans, he saw something in Cersei. And I think it's also like related to the fact that it's not like the Eternals are like sent on their mission all wanting to fuck and date each other. like I think they develop their ideas of those relationships based on how they see humans interacting. You know, I don't think they wanted to get married, but they're in Babylon at the time, and that is like a thing that was going on around them. So they decide to get married by a human. I don't know if priest is the right word. I doubt it, but you understand what I'm saying, right? So like
Religious official.
yeah, I think that's like an important aspect of it is the way the humans, especially with this group of Eternals, have like warped their perspective on like what they value and care about.
Oh yeah, and I think it's done.
Interesting.
I think it's done like I like that it is done uniquely for each character. Like, you know, there's even like the Eternals, like you see, you know, Icarus being like strongly like, no, we have to let this happen to let the other things happen. Klingo just letting himself step out because he wasn't sure where he felt. Kinga.
You said Kingo. You said Klingo, bro.
It's such a different thing every time.
Yeah.
What is the name of that? It's Kinga. Kinga.
Kingo. King with an O.
Kingo. Okay. Yeah. Like he stepped out because he was like, I agree with Eric.
Disrespecting the brown
and Icarus.
Sorry, go ahead.
The Icarus, and he just like let himself step out. But even among the ones that ended up choosing to fight together, they had their own like unique reasons for doing so. Like as far as like Druig did like felt that way because he was able to, you know, like see into the minds of them. Festus was able to like Festus. It was shown in a scene after like the bombing of Nagasaki had completely lost faith in humanity. He's like, these are just awful people.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are awful.
And he
trying
blamed
to kill
himself.
each other. And blamed himself.
Well, yeah,
like to a degree. But he like also lost faith in humanity, but then regained it through the finding of his husband and and his child and like the love of them.
True.
And Cersei,
his family.
Yeah, and Cersei.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to.
Yeah. Okay, you're good. Yeah, you go for it. Go for it. I didn't really know. Cersei
I just wanted to say. You just told me to go for it. Okay, hold on. yeah, go for it. Let me continue.
Yeah, that's my bad.
I just wanted to say really quick. I only interjected because it was a quick thing. Is that it relates to what we were talking about before? Relates to what we were talking about before with the inclusion of the gay couple and his family, in that it makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not for no reason. His family is shown, like you said, has actual ties to his character and his struggle and his arc throughout the movie. Please continue. Cersei, something. Go
Cersei, I was going to say, I was a little bit more unclear on hers. It just seemed like hers was just like developed over time as far as like just interacting with people, and then like, because it didn't seem like Dane had like this big influence of like, oh, I met my partner and like fell in love with humanity. Like hers seemed like kind of developed throughout, which wasn't the same as the others ones, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Can I read you a quote? It's good you brought that up. There was this interview with Chloe Zhao. I want to read this quote because it relates directly to Cersei and what you were talking about. So here the quote is, the question was, Cersei's interesting because she's not necessarily the strongest or smartest Eternal, but she has this deep compassion. What was it about her journey that most interested you? And the answer from the director is, I think there was a time in our society, almost as if we've lost our mother. We're trying to regain that now today. To be feminine, to be loving, to be forgiving, to be compassionate, it's not a weakness. Again, we're trying to challenge the genre itself. She doesn't have to punch anybody. She doesn't have to put a man down. She doesn't even necessarily have to stand completely on the gooder side or the evil side. She can fall in love. She can be blinded by love. I think that these are human traits, and these are the traits that are incredibly brave and strong. And even her power, everything she changes is elemental. It's almost like she never kills anything. Even when she changes a rock into some birds, she keeps it going. Life. So I feel like that, and the reason I wanted to read that quote is because I feel like it's something that we really need to consider regarding that character. And I think it explains the way that she acted, you know? And I don't know, I thought that was just a good quote.
Yeah, I like that. That honestly answers any confusion I had there. Not confusion, but like on lack of clarity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so so we discussed, I feel like, a lot of Are there any other things regarding the characters themselves and how they clash you guys want to talk about before I move to the next point?
I feel like I've said everything that I was hoping to on the characters.
All right. So there's no other comments, then let's talk about, start getting into more of the pushing the envelope of the future, right? So we mentioned earlier Dane Whitman, Cersei's boyfriend, who, I guess also I just want to clarify, at the end of this movie ends with the remaining Eternals who are on Earth being plucked off of the Earth by Arishem himself. We get this awesome, cool, grand scale visual of him in front of Earth with the Eternals in his hand. And he tells them that, even though they defined him, he will judge Earth and see if they're worth this defiance of his will. You can correct me.
He will judge them based on the memories of those three Eternals.
Okay.
Which
three
those...
Eternals meaning... Oh,
Ringo,
the ones... Okay.
Pingo, Jesus. Almost went for Django, bro. Rango with Johnny Depp, you guys remember that? Anyways.
Yeah.
It's Jingo, Cersei.
You did it again.
You just said the same thing. What?
God damn it.
It's what we were doing, and it did it worse.
No, I'm not coming, I swear. Pingo, Cersei, and
Fastus.
Yes. And then at the same time, Druig and Makari are
and Thena
in space. Yeah, and Thena.
Right.
So those three Eternals memories will be what Arishem decides the judgment of humans upon.
Because at this point, Sprite, because I was trying to do the math because there are 10 Eternals only.
Sprite's
Sprite chose to give up their powers just to become human. Ajak died by Deviant. Gilgamesh died by Deviant.
Icarus flew into the sun. Supposedly is dead, but I'm
kind of unclear on whether Icarus is still alive. He's probably still alive.
The fact that it was so unclear means that he's going to come back in some form or some way, I feel like, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that part because I feel like we didn't fully explain that. But Dane Whitman is left on Earth, and throughout the movie we get teased by his appearances. It's even name dropped, I believe, the Ebony Blade, his birthright, which leads to us finding out that he is going to become the Black Knight, another Marvel Comics character who has a lineage that goes all the way back to King Arthur and the royalty in those days. And I kind of like the way they teased that throughout the film. It wasn't all shoved into one post-credit scene. Throughout the film, Cersei mentions at one point when she thinks that the entire world is going to be over, she calls him and says, "You should patch things up with your uncle," who in the comics was the former Black Knight. And there's all sorts of hints and stuff like that. And then the post-credit scene, we of course see him finally opening the box with the ebony blade, and we hear a voice, and the voice says maybe someone knows the exact quote, but I think it was, "Are you sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?" Right? Is that right? Okay.
Something like that.
And all sources seem to agree that was Mahershala Ali's voice as playing Blade, the vampire, which is pretty hype. What do you guys think?
Well, technically, Blade's not a vampire. He's a daywalker, whatever. I don't actually know. I've just heard people say that so many times. I thought it was pretty sick. I didn't understand it because I don't recognize his voice that readily.
Mm-hmm.
But
it was pretty quick.
I thought the blade looked really cool. Also, I forget the there's like words inscribed on the case in maybe like Latin or some foreign language that I do not recognize as being a living language. And Dane Whitman reads them, and it's like there's captions. I forget what it says, but it says something badass like about death being the price or reward or something dark. Thought that was cool. The blade, like, as he goes to touch it, like, moves this black film around the blade, like, moves towards him. Seems kind of sick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about the Black Knight. I feel like a lot of people probably don't generally.
Yeah,
Reading some of it
definitely
here,
a lower tier.
it seems like it has a lot of interesting, like, overflow with, like, Avengers, the Black Panther, Scarlet Witch, Dracula is mentioned as well, among others. It just seems like it'll like tie in with a lot of things that are already in the MCU, as well as introduce a lot of new things into it too, which is going to be cool.
Well, there's also a team, right? MI13 is the team that the Black Knight was on. It's like based in England, where Dane Whitman is.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
MI13 is a British intelligence agency in the comics. I forget who's on the team though. I know the Black Knight is.
Captain
it's like
Britain.
Supernatural team. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Blade is obviously, I'd say, on the same wavelength as Supernatural.
It's going to be exciting to see Blade in the MCU. I hope they do justice to his film. Mahershala Ali is an incredible actor who many might not know was already in the MCU well, I guess it's debatable as to whether it's a canon now, but at the time it was Luke Cage, the Netflix show. He played Cottonmouth, the villain in that first season. There's a pretty interesting twist in that one. Recommend watching the Netflix shows to anybody. They're all very good. Besides Iron Fist, probably don't watch Iron Fist, but yeah, no, I'm excited for Blade. I'm excited for Black Knight. Kit Harington is a great actor.
That's who plays Dane Whitman.
Yeah,
I liked his role a lot.
Also, Gemma Chan was in the MCU, and Captain Marvel is one of the
true.
three.
But who cares about Captain Marvel, right? Seriously, I mean, it sucks. It's bad. It's terrible.
I did not like that film even a little bit.
Samuel Jackson was good. That's all I'm saying.
True. I mean, but he had a lot to carry, Yeah. Well, no one man should have all that responsibility.
Holy shit, there's so many layers to that joke.
There's like 3 at least.
That's awesome. That's so good.
I enjoy
Remember that, please.
No one man should have all that responsibility.
Wow.
The Spider-Man Kanye parody.
I feel like that could literally just like sum up my life. Like, in terms of like my interests, like Kanye and Spider-Man. That's it.
That's it. Those 2 things
about me.
That's all.
All 2 of those things could sum up my life. What inspires me, the way I act, Kanye and Spider-Man.
I think before we wrap up Eternals, one thing we haven't talked about, the visuals. The visuals were really good, I feel like, relative especially to some recent MCU thing. I think the only one, if I had to choose, like, my least favorite visual aspect was probably the original Deviants. They seemed kind of generic, sort of just metallic animal creatures, alien tier. You've seen it before.
I agree with you, but I do think the design of them was cool. I liked all the like tendrils and the way.
That's what I'm saying. As it progressed, it got a lot cooler because they absorb powers, they gain tendrils, and then eventually they become human. Obviously, so that fixed itself pretty quickly. I was saying earlier when we talked about it. In every Marvel movie for a long time, I've noticed at least one scene, if not more, where I'm like, oh, green screen, And I don't think I had that moment in this movie. It all felt real, and I do know a lot of it was shot on location. So that helps, and it helps keep things grounded, especially when you have a lot of other directorial responsibility in terms of having to show their powers and stuff, which obviously have to be CGI. So when you strike a good balance, it goes to show, and it makes a good movie. And I thought that the rest of the camera work was pretty good. I loved all the sweeping shots of the different environments again, and I just thought I don't really have any complaints regarding that, and I thought that it was just interesting.
Oh yeah, visually, like the powers of the Eternals were some of the personally I think some of the coolest like looking visual powers in the entire MCU. Like Iron Man's like is pretty cool just because it's like it's a classic as far as like the beams and the arc reactor and stuff. But just like I don't know, even with like all the Eternals had like very similar like coloration and like energy style to their powers. Like just the visualization of it was so cool. Like it's like with like Festus's like floating things in the air, like creating things, like pulling them apart, and then like down to like even like Kingo's like energy balls coming out of his hands. Like I just thought that was some of the coolest visual pieces I've ever seen in a Marvel movie. And the big fight scene at the end between all the Eternals was I've said to people like one of, if not my like top favorite MCU fight scene.
Third act, because the third act of Marvel movies are usually ass, right? So it was nice to have one that was actually interesting because it wasn't just everyone team up against a big boss. It was everyone conflict with each other, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah, and like so having to creatively come up with ways to fight each other. Like Darian mentioned it right at the beginning. We were talking about favorite scene, like when Festus like anchored Icarus down to the ground and like sapped his powers. Like that was probably the coolest restraining I've seen in a movie. I thought it was so cool.
That's funny wording.
It's that one and Angelina Jolie's hands being bound by an alien. Top 2 restraint scenes in the movie. And they're both in this one, so it's a good sign.
Yeah, what other movie have restraining scenes?
I don't know.
Spider-Man when he webs up Falcon and Winter Soldier in Civil War.
He also restrains...
That's an example of a bad restraining scene.
You know, it's a good restraining scene is restraining the use of someone's ability to speak. You know, in Spider-Man 1, you know, when he shuts up Jameson, you know.
Shazam!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What were we talking about?
Get out of my building.
Parker, yeah, so the visuals. I agree. I think that, for example, like Kingo's powers, for example, are an example of how good Captain Marvel powers should have been. Versus, like, because you look at Kingo's, like you said, like, the ball's, like, rolling off his hand and it's shooting out in such an interesting way he angles
and it played
and
into
whatnot,
his
versus, like, Captain Marvel. Yeah, exactly, like, kind of improvisational sort of thing. Versus Captain Marvel, which is just, like, there's a Kree there, and then she just shoots a normal purple blast of energy or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and
no
like,
matter what.
And like even Kingo, like you could tell, like he could just kind of like shoot things out of the palm of his hand like that. But his personality is kind of more like fun, playful. Like he does throughout the whole movie, he does finger guns, and it never seems like dumb or like, oh, why is he doing that? Like it just kind of like fits into the scenes, but it like also fits his character. Where he's just like kind of shooting around like that. Like it looks cool. It's fun to watch.
That's a good point. He probably doesn't have to do that. He chooses to. I didn't think about that.
Because there is the scene where he like gets it in his hand and like forms up the ball and then shoots it like that.
Yeah.
That was an awesome scene. Maybe second favorite scene.
That was a good scene.
When they're all battling.
The Deviant's head blows off and this black sludge falls all over him, and then he's like, "Did you get that?"
After like
yes,
three
sir,
cameras of that dude had been destroyed, he's like, he just has another camera.
What did you get? I think that's another probably going to be a contentious thing. I mean, not to call anyone out, but I feel like Evan's been pretty public about this. I feel like if Evan, because Evan hasn't seen the full movie yet, I know he's watched things and talked about it with us, but like,
this is cringe. Why is this guy here? It doesn't make sense.
I feel like Evan would not. For example, people like Evan wouldn't like the.
You just gotta take your standard for comedy and like put it aside if you want to laugh at something, or even not laugh but have a good time. You know what I mean? Like, not everything is gonna be hilarious or designed for someone like my own sense of humor. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like most of the humor in it was kind of just like one-liners here and there. Like it was never like a big forced like, oh, this is what they're trying to make as a joke. It's just like a little thing here and there. Like the scene where Cersei was on the phone, like FaceTime with Zane, and then or Dane, sorry, and the connection started going out. She's like, "Hey, we're breaking up." And Icarus, like without hesitation, is like, "Really? You are?" Like just stuff like
breaking up.
Yeah. Connor, you might want to turn your camera on and off or something. For those who didn't hear, Connor was talking about when Cersei was on the phone with Dane Whitman. And she says, "Oh, I can't hear you. You're breaking up." And Icarus says, "Oh, you're breaking up." And it's obviously I'm butchering the delivery there, but it's pretty funny in the theater. I agree. Yeah, that's the great thing about the humor in this movie is not everyone is Tony Stark versus all the other ones, right? Everyone in the normal Marvel movies has to quip, you know? And it's nice when the quips
Feel natural.
actually feel natural and are different for each person because they're different people. I thought the camera guy was funny too. Like I agree, Darian. Like you just have to.
I enjoyed his character a large amount. I thought he was a very good addition to the movie.
It's like you can't go into a Marvel movie expecting the humor you get from like an Edgar Wright movie. You know, you just can't. No matter what. So, yeah, I'd say that sums that up. Any other thoughts on Eternals? Anybody?
I liked it. I thought it was good. It was refreshing. You should watch it. It's kind of long, but when you're watching it, it's not actually that long. And if you act like you don't have fucking 2 hours and 40 minutes to watch a movie, you're a liar. So that's my final word.
It's true. That's a good point. Connor, how do you want to sum this up?
Inclusive, ambitious, visually pleasing, overall good time.
I agree, and like Darian said, I think it's refreshing. And between this movie and the Suicide Squad, also from this year, I said this, but it really gives me hope. Gives me hope for the future. So we can only hope people continue to take steps in the right direction. You know.
I agree.
So please watch Eternals if you are somehow listening to this point and haven't watched it. Yeah. So let's move on. Another movie that came out this year, Shang-Chi. It sounds like I'm making a joke. I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly. Connor, you watched it most recently, so I'm going to put you on the spot again.
For a little plot summary?
What was the little plot summary, and then follow that with your thoughts, maybe?
Okay, I'm just gonna go full in with spoilers because we're at this point, like whatever.
Yeah.
So basically, this dude finds these 10 rings, which is like a super powerful 10 ring items that make him grant him basically immortality, and they're just like one of the most effective offensive weapons of his time. He's like multiple.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
sorry,
he's
excuse
like
me.
multiple
You're right.
thousands of years.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Basically, he goes to try and find this like legendary place called Talo. Yeah, I think it is.
Sure.
If that's wrong,
It doesn't matter.
It's
Also, for reference, basically, this guy is the Mandarin, right? Not to take you out of your plot summary, I just want to confirm that.
Okay,
he's the original Mandarin.
Yeah, like this dude is the guy that the Mandarin in Iron Man 3 was like based off of. Yeah, and impersonates.
Yeah.
So yeah, he goes to try to go into Talo, which is like this like mystical place, got like all these creatures and like all this like otherworldly power in it. He tries to go find it and is like combated and beat by the Protector, who ends up being his wife. He puts down the 10 rings, starts a family with her. Yada yada yada. People come in, like gang people come in that he had taken down in the past, come in while he isn't home and kill his wife. So he takes back out the 10 rings and raises up his son as a warrior. Kind of ends up like not paying much attention to his daughter, kind of leaving her to do whatever. She becomes sad about it. That son is Shang-Chi. He comes, just like through his life, he's sent on a mission to kill the people who killed his mother. Does kill them, feels bad about it, and doesn't want to continue, ends up moving to America, which is where the movie starts, with him as just like a valet driver in America. But then his mother had given him and his sister these pendant necklaces, which end up being required by the father to open up this map to now, like years and years in the future, years and years down the line, end up getting into Talo. So he's, just in America with his friend, gets attacked on a bus by a bunch of his father's warriors, gets the pendant taken. They end up going back to I don't know exactly what country or like what area it was that they were from, but he goes back home to his sister. Something happens to his sister. She gets attacked. There's a little cameo scene by Wong from Doctor Strange, which is it's pretty funny. Good little scene. Um, yeah, he comes back to like find his sister. She gets attacked. Both of their pendants get taken. Their father ends up showing up, and they get brought back to their like home living place, where it is revealed that the father like has found out that with these pendants he can find a map to Talo, which is where he believes that the mother is being held captive, which is actually these like demons type things that are hidden behind this cage. He's going crazy. They end up going there. He fights through the people of Talo, including his sister-in-law, goes with the 10 rings, opens up the door, like opens up this big gate and lets out all these demons, which are unable to be beaten by his weapons. They can only be beaten by the Talo weapons. So all of his fighters and all the Talo fighters end up teaming up and fighting against them, while Shang-Chi goes and fights against his father. And it like in this final scene, he ends up like taking 5 of the rings at some point, leaves them all down. Like he's like, "Fuck this shit. I'm not going to use these rings." Father ends up in the end kind of like conceding, realizing that he was in the wrong, and giving over the rings to Shang-Chi, and he defeats, the big demon, and is now the newly bestowed owner of the mystical 10 rings.
That was pretty good. Work. Yeah, so definitely a lot. Kind of going multiple places at multiple times. Personally, with this movie, I really, really wanted to like it more because it had so many cool, unique elements in the sense of like finally showcasing an Asian story, which was great. Having the extended knowledge of fight choreography with the director's experience as well as Simu Liu's experience, which we get showcased a little bit. So there were a lot of things I liked, but I just feel like they got kind of bogged down by the quote-unquote Marvel movie tropes and just left me feeling kind of mid about it, So, for example, some stuff I liked was like the bus fight. The bus fight was really fun, great action, great set piece, great constantly moving environment. Really showcased how good, like I said, both the actor and the choreography is. I thought that, I guess to continue with action, like all the stuff with the rings was really cool. You actually get a sense of how powerful they are. And it's cool that they made this adaptation because in the comics, the 10 rings are more or less like Infinity Stones in the sense that they're just like things of power that have to be obtained. Whereas in the movie, they've made it more of a weapon, So I thought that was cool, and I appreciate that change. And I mean, like in the end, the final fight with the dragon and everything, he's using the rings to jump up through the air, but then also uses them to fight in midair and shoot them because you can shoot them too. I thought that was all really cool. So I like those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely like the inclusivity of like the new like Asian storyline. Rings were cool. As far as like it being next to Eternals, this was definitely more so of like the single character bio, or just like the single character bio, like just bringing them up, talking about them, their story. They're like the people in their life that brought them to where they are. Big fight scene against the big bad at the end, and then everyone ends up happy. Like overall, just like a solid film. I don't have any like jarring complaints or anything really that I can say that I like actively disliked. I thought that it was a cool piece that it gave context to the Mandarin from Iron Man 3. Like it just kind of furthered that character, and he was that like the man who played the Mandarin, like the actor Mandarin.
Trevor Slattery.
Yeah, he was. I wouldn't even say cameo because he was in the movie for like a good bit.
I kind of wish they just kept him as a cameo. I feel like personally, like his whole comic relief bit, like really started dragging once they moved to the mystical village.
I feel like they could have had maybe like a scene or two less with him, but I feel like overall, I don't know, like him coming with them and him being like their guide there and him like kind of still being there made sense.
But I also say this as someone who like staunchly defends and loved him in Iron Man 3. Because, first of all, I don't think Iron Man 3 is a bad movie, like most people. And I also think that he had the perfect amount of levity in that movie, and the twist was funny and good. Honestly, I thought that. So
I was a
this
big
is coming
fan
from
of
someone who
Iron Man
really liked that. Yeah, I know. We've seen your Instagram from 6th grade.
Holy shit. It took me a second to even realize what you meant.
Guys, go look at Gecko. What is it?
At Strong Gecko 15. You are the only person, like you and Fletcher Perigo can get into that account, and that's it.
Oh, because it's private?
Yeah, like even I can't even get into it at all.
Damn. Well, sorry guys. I guess I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't. I just felt bogged down by that. It felt bogged down by some of the plot elements kind of dragging. There was a lot of exposition, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was necessary, but there's a very long period. For example, when they're on the plane, and he's explaining his origin as a child and his father and his mother dying and all this stuff, and they try to break it up by using this joke on the airplane where the flight attendant comes in the middle of the story and is like, beef or chicken, in the middle of the story. I don't know if you guys remember that, but
which if you've seen,
yeah,
if you're a Tyler the Creator fan and you saw any of his promo videos for his latest album, there was pretty much the exact same joke was done in the braised Bohemian beef or the I don't know, some type of salmon. I don't know. It's a joke. It's a joke I've seen.
Remember the type of salmon?
I don't know.
Every Tyler the Creator fan knows the name of the salmon in that skit.
Basically, I've seen that
Jeff
exact.
would murder you right now. Right.
Basically, I've seen that joke before, and I've seen it done better. So that joke just kind of fell very flat for me. But I mean, even so, I was just like, whatever. Like, I don't know. Even the parts
it just felt kind of forced. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Any other thoughts about this movie? Any other? We could kind of just throw them out randomly, I guess.
I thought it was pretty mids. I liked Eternals more. I expected to like Eternals less. Kind of unfortunate, but I don't think it's like horrible. I wouldn't watch it again. I
definitely a better it's a good
watch it over Captain Marvel probably though. Yeah. Or certain movies. I don't know.
It's a good light watch.
Underwhelming.
A good light watch, a good classic like family Marvel movie to just sit on the couch and watch together.
Yeah.
Solid, entertaining, nothing crazy.
We have a family that will sit on the couch and watch movies with you, Connor. This
is true.
Well, Wizard is privileged.
Moment of silence for Bill and I.
Yeah.
Dark
fuck you, Connor. What else? Just kidding. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have much else to say about this movie. It was mids. I guess it's worth the watch. Would you guys say it's worth the watch for?
Yeah, I would watch. I think like there's some enjoyable parts. See what's up, but like I don't think it's worth rewatching for me personally.
Yeah, I would not. Again, I agree.
A lot of people would agree.
As far as
I agree. The only movie I'd watch it over is Captain Marvel, like you said.
Yeah, as far as the after credits scene, there are two, correct?
Yeah, one is totally bullshit in my opinion. They've been doing this thing in the MCU since Endgame where the major characters appeared post-credit scenes on holograms. And, in this one we get Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel, and it's like, welcome to the circus. And that whole, and that's what another thing about this movie is, like, this level of having to be included in the universe really bogs it down. That scene, even Wong, Wong showing up and fighting Abomination would have been a lot cooler if I hadn't seen it in the trailer, first of all. Second of all, just felt it was like, okay, right? And then they show that, Wong is working with Abomination as, using this as a side gig, which just seems kind of sus. Not like
I think what they're trying to set up is Wong's working with Abomination and Bruce Banner, so now we can put him in the Disney Plus show, which has been pretty heavily rumored prior to this. That's what fair. I kind of took it as. They're trying to use this scene to establish a link, or the movie, I guess, to establish a link between Bruce Banner and Wong and Abomination.
I guess it just feels like...
Also, I think they might just be trying to link Shang-Chi to Wong, because they're like, oh, those rings aren't from anything in this universe. So they might be trying to set up some, like, multiverse connection, maybe, or, like, some kind of Doctor Strange multiverse of madness thing where Shang-Chi...
This is an example of, like, how Marvel has, in their post-credit scene frenzy, has kind of turned themselves inside out. And what I mean by that is, like... So, for example, like you said, one actual detail they mentioned in that scene was, okay, the rings are not from this universe. That should be mentioned, I feel like, or referenced in the movie itself. Why does it have to be in a post-credit scene? You know what I mean? The pointless post-credit scenes have to stop. Information that will hint to future movies or add more context or questioning to the universe should be in the movie. For example, we've talked about this, Spider-Man 2. Not even Spider-Man 2, all three original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. You look at post-credit scene where, for example, Harry Osborn finds his dad's lair at the end of Spider-Man 2, right? It's in the movie. You know what I mean? Even though they didn't know they were going to get a sequel from Spider-Man 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, these things are included in the movie because they build the universe and they build the characters. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel about.
Well, I think it's also it's kind of bad though, because now people are expecting it, so like they're gonna wait anyways. So like, if Spider-Man 2 were made today and everyone wanted a post-credit scene in every superhero movie, maybe, you know what I mean? It's like, in a way, they started doing this, and now people expect it, so that incentivizes them to keep doing it ad nauseum, even when it's not sensible, you know? Yeah. Like, I'm not agreeing with it, but I just feel like it'll never stop at this point.
No, that's true. It's definitely not going to stop.
Because I think, honestly, the mid-credits scene for Eternals could have just been at the end of the movie. I don't know why it wasn't. It basically... You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it would have, like... I think that scene with arrows kind of made sense as a post-credit scene. Because, like, especially ending it with... Or honestly, even if they had put that as the end scene and then switched that final scene with, like, Cersei and Dane and made that the post-credit scene, I think that could have worked too. But, like, having both of those scenes kind of, like, back-to-back, one of them in the credits, I think makes sense. Because those are kind of two things that, like, both needed to be towards the end, but didn't really make sense to have both just in the end of the movie, you know? That's at least how I feel about it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I also think in both cases, they're just, like, playing off the hype of an unexpected actor appearing in a post-credit scene that is anticipated because it's waiting through the credits. You know, like, oh, whoa, like, Brie Larson and Mark Ruffalo and Harry Styles.
The Brie Larson, Mark Ruffalo, I feel like that was just, like, that definitely could have been in the, like, just in it. I feel like it tried to make a couple jokes that felt really flat. Or there's not at all, Like,
I also think, though, in defense of it, I feel like I appreciate that they're trying to give us a sense that, like, you know, like they talked about, like, throughout some of the movies beyond Endgame. God, I hate that I'm referencing Far From Home, but it's like, do the Avengers even exist anymore? You know what I mean? Like, there's no, like, actual team, so what the fuck is everyone doing? Like, Falcon and Winter Soldier seemingly are just doing their own shit. Like, Rhodey shows up and they talk to him once, but he's not, like, in contact with them, or, like... My point is, I think it's kind of nice to know that, like, yeah, there's not, like, an Avengers, but at least the characters still talk to each other, you know? Like, Doctor Strange and Wong have some form of communication with Captain Marvel. Like, she didn't just fly off into space and disappear again, and then we have to wait for Nick Fury to press the fucking button. You know what I mean?
At least don't be lazy and make them use fucking holograms. At least they make them all be in the same room. You know what I mean? Like, I hate the whole hologram thing. Personally.
And then, like, they tried to make a joke.
It's probably because Bruce Banner has to be with She-Hulk for the show in a different city, and Captain Marvel has to be ready for her movie in space. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, it's also it's not actually funny. It's just ironic. Like, they're just playing into the joke at this point because they're like, you know, Bruce Banner in the scene is like, oh yeah, like, you can get Captain Marvel's number, and then she just leaves, and then Wong's like, I don't have her number. No one has her number. Just like, yeah, like Captain Marvel isn't actually in the MCU 90% of the time because she chooses not to speak to people. That's why. That's it.
Yeah, I thought that was just like a weird joke.
There's no explanation beyond it. Well, it's because what's going to happen is Captain Marvel could just come in and stop any threat unless no one can talk to her. So that's why she won't do it. We can't reach her. I feel like that's actually what they're just reinforcing for us. Like,
which is so
you know what I mean?
dumb.
Like,
yeah.
It's like, why even have such a powerful character if you're just like the Eternals? They're that powerful. They explained very well and very like concisely why they weren't around. Captain Marvel is just like, oh yeah, here's an OP character that we're just not going to include because it would make things too easy.
Right. So then, why use her? I stand.
Well, they should have just kept her separated doing space things. She should have showed up for Infinity War or Endgame.
Or with Guardians are separated.
And then just been like, all right, I gotta go do more important shit. Bye. You know what I mean? But I guess the problem is they can't do that because she also finds out that she's from Earth and shit. You know, there's like so many layers to the involvement of her character with Earth that it would make sense if she just stayed in space like she does in the comics, I guess, you know, after working with the Avengers and shit.
Yeah.
Kind of wrote themselves into a corner, I feel like.
Yeah.
I agree. At this point, hopefully they just separate her off, because, yeah.
Also, Captain Marvel is, like, so different. I feel like they've increased the power level of Captain Marvel compared to, like, her original role in the comics, you know, like before they changed the design of her, you know, when she was, like, wearing black and yellow and on the Avengers.
They're getting too... They want to add everybody and everything's connected, you know what I mean? They just need to really try to section groups off until the inevitable next Avengers movie, right? So, I don't know. We'll see. Any other Shang-Chi thoughts? No.
I think I've summed up most of my thoughts. I don't have that much thoughts about it beyond the fact that, like, it's worth watching. There's definitely some good parts. I like
cool fight choreography.
All of the scenes that you mentioned, Nabil. But it's just kind of, that's it, you know?
Yeah, mid.
It is what it is. Like, it's fun, but
mid
sometimes you need to... It's funny.
Sometimes you need to, yeah.
I was going to say, sometimes it's better to just enjoy something once than go back and realize it's not worth watching at all, you know? I think Shang-Chi is worth watching the first time, but if you hold it to too high of a standard, you're probably going to be disappointed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my point.
Alright, well, speaking of the future of the MCU, we got a trailer recently, did we not, guys?
We got 2 trailers and, 4 TV spots?
True, I guess we never discussed the first trailer because it's been so long since we've done an episode. But we can... I feel like there's a lot of overlap with the first trailer.
It's just kind of...
podcast on the trailers, honestly. Unironically, I feel like we could at this point.
Yeah, we definitely could, but we gotta hold off. We gotta
wait and just do an episode for the movie.
Dude, the episode for the movie...
That's gonna go so hard.
That's gonna be crazy. Alright, so we got a new trailer. A lot of things were revealed.
We're talking about Spider-Man, by the way. Did we explicate that? I think we've just been
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Spider-Man No Way Home official trailer number 2, guys. Or, I guess official trailer, because the first one was only a teaser trailer. So, yeah. So, what do we think of this trailer, guys? I'm going to scrub through and look for a few details just to refresh myself, but are there any thoughts off the top of your head?
I mean, I thought it was good. I'm glad we got to look at the villains, and I'm glad that they're holding on to the excitement that will come if Toby and Andrew are in the movie. If they are, I'm glad that they didn't show it. I don't think they need to at this point. You know, there's so much hype and speculation.
Oh, yeah. And looking at, like, all the suits, like, there's quite a few different Spider-Man suits, because you have the classic Iron Spider. There's one that looks like just like his classic cloth. There's the black and gold. It seems like there's the black and gold and also just a black suit from inside the school, but that could be the same suit.
All right, I got you, bro. Don't worry, I know this one. All right, look at the 3D printed Iron Boy Jr. suit he made on the jet from Far From Home that he was wearing at the end. That we will probably see the beginning of that sequence. When he finds out, everyone knows who I am, and he swings away with MJ, the red and black suit with the white logo. I'm talking about, to reiterate. Okay, then we have the black and gold suit, which he also gets imbued with the powers from Doctor Strange, like we see in that cool shot from the trailer with the orange rings going up, which is theorized and like very, very strongly believed by most people to just be the black and white red suit turned inside out, because we see wires and tubes sticking out. Also, if you remember in Homecoming, when he's removing the tracer from his suit, I don't know if anyone remembers that scene. He removes the tracer that Tony Stark had in his suit. They have the thing kind of turned inside out on the sleeve, and it looks just like that with a gold lining. So it's
protocol.
He's treating me like a kid.
You are a kid.
Yeah.
Want to do the whole scene again? From the top.
Boy, yeah.
And
So-
is that black and gold inside out suit the same suit that's in the shot of him running through the school?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Or at least in the trailer. Just remember, any of these could just be skinned over for the trailer. So just to throw us off for the order of the movie. You know what I mean? 'Cause that's been done before. So just to reiterate, we're going off the trailer itself. And then we have the new integrated suit, which is a mix of all the suits, which is like, to me personally, just looks like the Iron Spider suit with like a gold logo that's wrapped around it. You see that at the end of the trailer there. And so those are his 3 suits in the movie. I'm pretty sure that's all of them.
I just had an idea, not to interrupt you.
Yeah, sure.
Imagine Doc Ock makes Spider-Man a new suit.
That'd be kind of cool.
That would be
I just thought about that because the Iron Spider suit we see get destroyed to some degree by Doc Ock in the trailer, right? But then he has a new one. Right? Where does it come from? It's nanotech. We like
Think your fancy new suit's gonna save you? Yeah, I should also say, by the way, for those who haven't, look up there's some new TV spots that came out today, which is what I'm referring to. We got a few new lines from Doc Ock, and a few new shots of the villains. It looks pretty cool. Speaking of, like you mentioned, we see Doc Ock in the trailer, and he seems to believe that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is his Spider-Man. Obviously, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. From the TV spot, even he says, like I said, he said, "You think your fancy new suit's going to save you?" And then, of course, in the trailer, he says,
You're not Peter
not Peter Parker," when his mask comes off. And also, we see what seems to look like Dr. Octopus absorbing the nanotech from his suit, probably inadvertently, and the arms kind of take that in. And we have theorized that maybe that's how his inhibitor chip that protects his motor functions. That was an exact quote from Spider-Man. Maybe it heals that, and that's why maybe he gets a change of heart, because it seems like maybe later in the trailer he seems a little more friendly to Peter Parker. And also we see a shot of him falling out of a building later in the trailer, supposedly from Electro's blast, meaning maybe he teams up with Peter Parker's towards the end. Yeah, so
the Doc Ock,
Yeah.
as far as like the arms and just like the costume and stuff, it looks pretty much the same as the 2000 Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, when we talked about this, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you look closely, you can tell that there's CGI going on and that this guy is 20 years older or whatever, but all things considered, it doesn't look that bad. And even, like I said today, you guys should watch those TV spots. There's an incredible shot of him that to me looks like almost exactly what he should look like from that year. So I'm pretty, and none of these are final products. So I think by the time the movie comes out, it'll all be good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the de-aging work they did on Samuel L. Jackson and fucking Captain Marvel is a good
Yeah.
reference point of what they're able to do, or like the stuff with Chris Evans. I don't know if you've watched the behind the scenes on it, either of those.
I watched some
But they-
with you.
Yeah, they do a really good job of that stuff. It's pretty interesting
Mhm.
how much effort they actually put into it.
Right.
And then from
So
there,
I think they'll do a good job with this because it's even bigger of a deal, you know.
and then from there, the other villains like Green Goblin, we see the full
Green
shot of
Goblin's
this,
returning.
the full shot of the suit with some differences to like the as far as like the edges and like versus smoothness of the head, but like just overall the suit looks really cool.
Right.
And we see the alternate shot with the like the goblin or like the pumpkin drones and the goggles, which we have not seen the goggle
Mhm.
Green Goblin at all. Like that was not one of the outfits in the Spider-Man one.
This is a new invention This is a new look for him where he's gonna have the goggles and have like a purple scarf, kind of alluding more to the comic book version of the Green Goblin. And of course, like you said, we see those pumpkin bombs again. We see the ones that I'm forgetting the names of them, but they have the razors attached. And
Like
just remember
in
the
the-
iconic scene. That's where his arm gets cut in Spider-Man 1. He's like, and of course that leads to it dripping down later during the Thanksgiving scene.
Which then leads
I just had to stop myself from
Yeah,
going
yeah.
down that path.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
And then from there,
Um,
Electro, we see when, like, not permanently, but when emanating the blast from also seen in the TV spot today, some sort of arc reactor. We see the classic Electro face, like mask at least, like
right,
the
the
shape
mask.
of
Yeah.
the mask from the comics.
Yeah. Thing. Yeah. In the trailer, he looked full CGI, like PS3 character tier, which is a little sus. But once again, today in the TV spot, we saw that he looks a little more. He looks
Real.
like a human being. Yeah, and it looks cool. And like you said, we saw that he has an arc reactor, so I guess all the villains will be using probably some sort of Stark tech to enhance themselves, it seems like. So,
I mean, I
I
don't
feel
think that's
like
going to
it
be all of
seems
them.
less annoying than Iron Man being.
well, it makes more sense than any of those other things that have happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
it makes sense. Like, they're 20 years behind. Of course, they're going to upgrade their tech. You know, like
And I mean, as far as like Lizard and
Lizard looks the same.
yeah, Lizard and Sandman just doesn't. I don't know how
Sandman.
he would incorporate tech into that. Thing was just kind of that he could turn into
Yeah.
sand.
But he looks really cool.
He
looks
does.
good.
But
And
yeah, no shots of him as a person. Which
no shots of him as a human.
I'm really, really hoping that we get the classic Sandman shirt because I love that visual from Spider-Man 3.
I think when he's in the cell where the Doc Ock is in the cell, I'm assuming we'll get shots of all of them in there. I'm
Mhm.
assuming. I don't. I definitely
Well-
don't know, but
I don't wanna
think he'll
spoil
be a
anything,
human in the cell.
I don't want to spoil anything, but there was some leaked concept art of the spoil. Okay, so this is like a
Of the spoilers.
no, sorry. This is for those warning. This is an artistic spoiler. This is not a spoiler to the plot of the movie, but there was concept art of everyone in the cell. I mean, it's concept art, so it could obviously change, but it shows all the villains standing in the cell or like drawings of them, and the salmon one is just like a man made of sand. That's kind of sus.
That is sus. If we never see him in just like human form, I am going to be a
I'll
little
get
annoyed.
mad, bro. Yeah,
But I
that'll
mean,
be-
as far as the fight scenes where we see the like full size like attack mode Sandman, like the final battle
oh yeah,
scene
looks great.
of Spider-Man 3, that stuff looked awesome.
Yeah. Also, we see that Doctor Octopus has that same needle. This needle
Like a
device
blade.
that it comes out of his tentacle. If you remember in Spider-Man 2 when he's holding Aunt May hostage, and she's like, "Shame on you!" and hits him in the back of the head. You remember that? That's that scene. What else? Let's see. So talked about that. So there's some interesting editing going on in this trailer to mask some spoilers. It seems like, right? We get some weird, clunky dialogue from Doctor Strange both at the beginning and end of the trailer. The beginning, he sounds like he's having an aneurysm. Because go
Look
guys.
at that
I mean,
botched spell you had me cast.
I'm gonna play that right now. It's playing right now.
Peter
Listen to this,
Parker.
guys. Listen to this. It's playing.
You botched that spell where you wanted everyone to forget the Peter Parker Spider-Man. You botched that spell where you wanted everyone to forget the Peter Parker Spider-Man.
What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them.
Like, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? It sounds terrible.
3 separate lines cut together. Tier.
Oh, true. And then at the end, yeah, he's like, "They're coming through, and I can't stop them." It's all like totally pieced together from across the movies. But it's. I mean, I don't know. I guess they could have done a smoother job, but I guess they're just trying to protect themselves or protect the audience from being spoiled certain things.
Which, in the what was it? The Brazilian cut of the movie. There's the shot in all the trailers of.
True.
This has to be mentioned. There's a shot in all the trailers of Tom Holland Spider-Man in the center, coming towards also centered Sandman, with Electro on the more kind of on the top and Lizard on the bottom, and it looks like a 1v3, but they're kind of lined up weird. But in the Brazilian version of the trailer that was released on the same day as the second trailer, there is that cut, like the cut of that shot is slightly longer, and you see Lizard like flying through the air, and then his neck get like whipped, like he gets punched in the face by something, but nothing is there punching him. So that
Nothing's there.
theories is that's either Andrew Garfield
Sus.
or Tobey Maguire Spider-Man punching them and then being skinned out.
Right.
Who knows?
There's definitely going to be tricky editing that we're going to see in the movie where we're like, oh my god, that was in the trailer. How do we not notice that this was edited out? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many potential spots where there could be other Spider-Man or other villains or whatever, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I think we can all three of us agree that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are probably going to be in this movie, right? I mean, we've all seen all sorts of evidence.
I would be genuinely surprised if they weren't, and probably a little bit let down.
More than a little bit, I feel like.
Okay, I'd be really, really upset if Tobey Maguire wasn't in this movie. I'm going to be honest.
For example, another bit of that kind of thing. At the end, MJ falls, just like we see Gwen Stacy fall in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And Peter goes down. Will he save her? Will he not? Many have speculated. We thought of this as well. Could this be a moment for Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man to get redemption for not saving Gwen? Could that be Andrew Garfield's hand going for MJ, reskinned to be Tom Holland's hand in this trailer?
Because there is also the line it was in the teaser and this one where Spider-Man says, I don't know if it was in the teaser, but it was in this one, where Tom Holland says, I don't think I can save everybody. That could be, a reference to having to have one of the other Spider-Man save MJ.
Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of talk about a joke in this trailer. Well, 2 jokes in this trailer. Let's start with Scooby-Doo this crap. What do we think? No, okay, Darian, I'm
cringe. MJ, less cringe. Doctor Strange, very cringe.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take the lid off the theory bucket. I know you have a theory about
Bro, Doctor Strange is acting very sus. I think he might be the imposter. Meaning, I think Doctor Strange might actually be doing things he would normally do, like casting the spell in the first place and letting Peter Parker mess it up. Or, seemingly just taking a backseat and making Spider-Man stop everyone when he might be able to do it. Because he's being controlled. He's being brainwashed. Theoretically, by
who do you think?
An outside force. Maybe Scarlet Witch. I think that's more likely. Maybe if we're really hopeful, Mephisto. But I don't think Disney will ever do Mephisto because bad devil religion things. It's devil's bad. Anyways, and that's what Mephisto is. I don't think they will at least do it in the way that it is in the comics. They're not going to literally.
Do you think that this is something?
Hell is setting Disney.
Yeah, I agree. But do you think this is something? The way he's been acting, if there is an imposter, so to speak, will this be something that's mentioned in the movie or a post-credit scene? You think?
Post-credit scene, or in the next in the Doctor Strange movie? I could see them just not mentioning it until the next movie. And maybe we get a post-credit scene that alludes to it but doesn't fully explain it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a lot of people have watched WandaVision, but with where that show ended and a lot of the dialogue about Doctor Strange, it seems like they're alluding to Scarlet Witch overpowering him in her search for what she wants, you know? I'm not going to fully spoil the ending of the show, I guess, but it doesn't really matter because that explains what I'm trying to say without spoilers.
Right. I guess we'll see. I mean, this would be the second time we've had an imposter mentor for Spider-Man, right? After Far From Home, Nick Fury was revealed on a postcard scene to be a Skrull. So I could see them doing it again as like another, the same thing reoccurring. Guess we'll have to wait and see. Any other thoughts for this trailer?
I think it's hype, but
it is hype.
Very excited.
It doesn't reveal too much in a good way. You know what I mean?
Do you think...
It reveals a lot, but not too much.
Since we're going off the assumption that they are in this movie, do you think that they should have showed them? You think that they will still show them somehow in a poster? Or...
I think not showing them until the film is released is definitely the play.
It's genius.
True.
You know what I mean?
Let everyone do their marketing for them by talking about it.
Exactly.
It'll be a moment in the theater to see that. Man, I should mention at this point, it's about 2 hours in. I don't have it with me. It's not in my room right now. I don't want to get up to get it. But there is an actual really good giveaway for Filmatic for this giveaway. You've heard us rave about it. If you listen to the episode, I'll just tell you again. The Suicide Squad is one of the best comic book movies I've seen. It's one of the best movies of the year. And it's a great movie. And I happen to have The Suicide Squad Blu-ray to give away. It'll be signed by me, and if that means anything to you, I'll sign it if you want, or you can tell me if you want it signed or not. You don't want to, if you don't want to ruin the case, but
no, it's coming signed. No, it's coming signed. You don't have an option to deal with signing it ahead of time.
So that's the giveaway. All you have to do, guys.
Giving away signatures for free? Come on. Whoa. Whoa.
You got to go to the Instagram post for this episode, and you got to comment.
No one man should have all that responsibility.
Okay, that's better. No one man should have all that responsibility. Or you can you can add hashtag Klingo to that. I'll accept that too, because Klingo is pretty funny. That was a funny moment. So, no one man should have all that responsibility. Comment that and/or / hashtag Kingo, and you'll be entered into the giveaway. It's a great movie, and I hope you guys get to win it. And it comes with these 3 little character cards. You got one for Captain Boomerang. I'm showing it right now. It's just a poster with Captain Boomerang for our audio listeners, and Savant, and the Weasel. This is highly sought for. This Weasel card. Look at that. You could hang this up on your wall if you're some kind of comic book freak.
I wanted it.
Interesting. What do you guys think of this giveaway, guys? I mean, come on.
This is a very exciting giveaway.
It's pretty poggers.
The poster's also signed by Nabil.
Yeah.
Okay, the DVD signed by Nabil. The posters, I guess, are not.
Yeah, wait, signed. Isn't the poster?
Okay.
You can sign it all. You can sign none of it, Nabil.
But Darian, don't you agree? This is such a great movie for people to watch. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and then it's awesome because not only do you get to watch the movie, not only do you get to hang the poster on your wall, not only do you get Nabil's signature, but then you get to watch the podcast afterwards.
True.
And understand why the movie is good because you don't have that ability on your own. You don't know about movies. Nabil does know about movies.
You know what you're talking about. It's No Clothes Family Day. Come over here. You don't know how to play this game. Quick game for a quick kiss.
No Clothes Podcast Day.
Guys, if you want to understand that joke, YouTube prank invasion. Just let us know your thoughts. Wow. Is there anything, you know, we've discussed the shows to some capacity before. We don't have to get into it now. But is there anything else coming up in this Marvel universe while we're on the topic that you guys were interested in talking about?
Moon Knight looks kind of cool, but I don't know. I'm still kind of up in the air. We'll have to see. You know what I mean?
The costume looks cool.
One of my friends at Harding in Knights got himself the title of Moon Knight because he got suspended last year for mooning the opposing team at a club versus club basketball game. And so his title is Moon Knight, and I think that is funny.
That's what the show's going to be about, right?
That's what I heard, actually. Yeah, Mike Zerang is going to be the lead actor.
He's going to be showing his ass to people at a school. Kind of sus. Speaking of sus, I just realized, Nabil, maybe you could just cut this out and put it somewhere else or something. Let me just give my plot summary of Eternals, alright? This is my version.
Okay.
Eternals is far removed from the Marvel Universe. It's about characters that originate in space. They have a ship called the Domo. There's 10 of them. But one of them is an imposter. Just thought about that. It's kind of insane. You know what I mean?
But he was the only one doing... He's the imposter, but he's the only one doing tasks.
He's faking the tasks, bro!
No, but he's doing tasks, right? If the task is to fucking eliminate Earth. You know what I mean?
I guess.
So really, he's the one who's not the imposter. The other ones are the imposters, if you look at it from that perspective. Connor's humping his Sprite toy.
What?
It's kind of weird. Just for our audio listeners, if they want to see what's going on.
I'm not. There's a button, and then the hands move, and it does a little dance.
Gemma-chan slaps. That's
oh boy.
Her power in the movie.
All in all,
toned it down for the podcast right now.
There are things going on.
But Gemma-chan gives hand job toy. That's what she's doing.
Oh no, there's a lot going on in the Marvel Universe, and we're here for the ride. Hawkeye's coming up. Hawkeye show in the next
Christmas.
2 weeks or something.
The most exciting part of Hawkeye for me is I want to see the Steve Rogers musical scene. Seems funny.
We can make some analogies
Rogers,
off
the
that.
musical.
Yeah, that.
Kate Bishop is
Wilson
hopefully done well. True. I forgot about that. I keep forgetting.
There are rumors. There are rumors. So this is not a spoiler. I don't know if this is true. There are rumors that Kingpin himself from the Daredevil series, as played by Vincent D'Onofrio, will make an appearance in the Hawkeye show, as it deals with the criminal underworld of New York. So that could be kind of cool. That would give me a reason to follow along with the show. So they know what they're doing with that, I think. And it'll be interesting because I don't know. I just it's hard to think about the future of the MCU because my mind is so overshadowed when I think about that kind of thing with No Way Home. You know, seeing Toby again, I just really want to experience that in the theater. You know, I can hardly wait. So, yeah. Well, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode and talking about Eternals and Shang-Chi and all these wonderful properties. Is there anything you guys want to add? First of all, if I missed anything, like I said, I just want to reiterate that. Can I add anything? And then secondly, if you want to plug something, as we must do on the podcast.
Be ready.
Connor, I'm calling on you.
Be ready. That's all I gotta say.
Oh, that's it? Just be ready. Can you at least give a hint as to what it is? Okay, music.
Steve Rogers, the musical.
I am directing, producing, and starring in the Steve Rogers musical. Coming soon to a small town theater near you.
Okay, well, I'll plug it for you, Connor, since you won't. I happen to know that Burnout here is working on an exclusive new project that actually has to do with recent political events. You guys have been following the news. I'm not going to say what for many reasons, but if you guys are following the news, make sure you're following Burnout for great music and relevant commentary. I'm excited to see that project happen. Also, if you guys should listen to the song Fireflies by Owl City, because I think that's going to play into it somehow.
Maybe it will.
Cool. And Darian, anything you want to say? Anything you want to?
Thanks for bringing me on the podcast. Eternals is basically Among Us. You should watch it though, because it's good. That's it.
All right, guys. You've been listening to Filmatic. We're going to be coming at you with more frequent episodes, I promise this time. You know, we all got kind of caught up with school, but we're back. We're here. We've got a lot of, like we said, No Way Home's coming up. Hawkeye's coming up. In terms of Marvel movies, I still am going to be catching up on the movies I missed. I know The Last Duel came out. The Green Knight we haven't talked about. There are all sorts of different
Last Night in Soho.
movie points. Not
Very good one.
Yeah, Last Night in Soho. So many different things that are non-Marvel we're going to talk about too. I don't want to get it misconstrued. We're not just a simp mainstream entertainment podcast. We do other things too. At least I'd like to think so. I'm sorry if I let you down if you joined this podcast solely because of the Joker episode or whatever. But all right. Like I said, you've been listening to Filmatic Season 4, Episode 2. You can follow us on @Filmatic Podcast on Instagram. You can follow @Darian Nigro, or I believe it's @KillDarian now. And @Burnout, but without the U for some reason, and @Nabil Sharif and all that. So, just like that, guys, we're going to be signing off. You've been listening to Connor Park, Darian Nigro, and Nabil Sharif. Thank you guys. See you next time.